Deputy Speaker. It's now over 2 years since there was a Northern Ireland Assembly and Executive in Northern Ireland. And Northern Ireland now has the proud achievement of having a world record for the longest time a country has gone without a government. And we have heard, as members of the Select Committee, the difficulties that has caused, whether that's listening to the Chief Constable of the PSNI tell us about the daily struggles of not knowing whether he has enough money in his budgets to pay his officers or to order equipment or to make sure that the vital work that they need to do can be done. Whether it's listening to head teachers across all communities telling us about the school funding issues that they are facing, and not just about the funding issues, but the political reforms that need to happen for schools in Northern Ireland to enable them to teach the next generation of children. The Salisbury Review that was commissioned when the Northern Ireland Assembly was sitting, which is now gathering dust on tables because there is no one there to take those decisions forward. Whether it's the potential teacher strike that we're facing in Northern Ireland, because teachers in Northern Ireland have not had a pay rise since the Assembly has fallen, and teachers now in Northern Ireland are being paid 6.6% less than teachers in the rest of the United Kingdom. Whether it's members of the civil service of various departments telling us that they are doing their best to keep things going, but they cannot take those key political decisions that need to be taken by ministers. Whether it's the suicide strategy in the Department of Health that is still on hold, that could be saving lives as we speak, or whether it's the fact that there's still no mental capacity legislation, even though in the rest of the United Kingdom not only did we have the original Mental Capacity Act, we only a few weeks ago passed an amended version of that. And whether it's listening to the MLAs who come to our committee who tell us there is no way there is going to be an assembly any time soon. It's depressing indeed. And while extensions after extensions seem to be the vogue in this place on a variety of issues at the moment, we cannot carry on like this in Northern Ireland and be representing all communities in the wonderful part of Northern Ireland that exists. And I think it's ironic that almost 50 years ago to the day, on the 22nd of April 1969, Bernadette Devlin stood in this place to give her maiden speech, a controversial maiden speech, a controversial Member of Parliament who stood as a unity candidate, who I'm sure will be no fan of me, and I'm sure will be no fan of members of the DUP opposite. But she stood as a unity candidate, as a civil rights activist, campaigning for one man, one vote, for all communities in Northern Ireland. And how sad that 50 years later, when everyone in Northern Ireland does have the right to vote, that there are some communities who have neither representation in this place and have no representation in the Assembly either. And yet, despite that, so much has been achieved in Northern Ireland. We finally have peace, despite the terrible incidences over the holiday weekend. And my concern is, without an assembly, a vacuum is being created, which paramilitary organisations on all sides are starting to fill and starting to indoctrinate young people who weren't around at the time of the Good Friday Agreement, because they have no representation speaking up for them, whether it's on health or education or crime. And that vacuum is being filled by people who don't have the best interests of Northern Ireland at heart. But while we are struggling, and I really would like the Minister to outline what is going to happen in August if there is no Assembly formed, will we be seeing another election? Will we be having an Assembly of the willing? Or will we be having an independent chair of talks to get things going? We need to have those answers this evening before we decide on the motion before us. But what I'd also like to say is that Northern Ireland is a wonderful place, despite what we've heard today, both in the statement and in the bill that's before us today. Northern Ireland, despite not having an assembly, is the best performing education system for primary maths in Europe. Belfast is the world's top destination for fintech development. Northern Ireland has the highest availability of broadband in the United Kingdom, something I'm personally very jealous of in Lewis and East Sussex, where we have multiple not spots. So any advice that could be given to East Sussex would be welcome. Where there's beautiful coastlines and where I've been to visit the Giant Causeway only over Christmas, and the Honourable Member for North Antrim was very generous in recommending hospitality in his constituency. And where we have so much good news and wonderful people, whether Northern Ireland people identify as British or Irish, Protestant or Catholic, of any faith or none, whether they're nationalists or unionists, they are the most friendly, hard-working people you could ever wish to meet. So while there are tough decisions to be made, and I urge and hope that all sides will get back round and form an Assembly and an Executive as soon as possible, there's some great stories to tell about Northern Ireland too, and I think without an Assembly we're missing some of the good news as well as the bad.